Hello again, everyone. This is Mrs. Adebalogun for biology, and today we will be talking about forms in which cells exist. Last week we talked about the cell, we talked about cell structure and their functions. We also talked about the types of cells. So today we are looking at the forms in which cells exist. Now, cells can exist in the following forms. They can exist as a unicellular organism or as a multicellular organism. Now, last week I talked about a unicellular organism being one that is made up of just one cell, and a multicellular organism being one that is made up of more than one cell. That's two or as many as can be. Okay? So, when cells exist as a unicellular organism, they can either be plant-like, in which case you call them unicellular plant-like protists. And we have examples in Euglena and Chlamydomonas. Here are pictures of an Euglena and the Chlamydomonas. Study the diagrams and you see the structures they have. The Euglena. Now, this is called a plant-like protist. And the reason it is called plant-like is the presence of the chloroplast in it. Take a look at the Chlamydomonas as well. It also has chloroplasts. Now, that's usually is the main difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. Now, the Euglena has a flagella for movement. So does the Chlamydomonas. But the reason you would call them a plant is the presence of the chloroplast. So we have plant-like protists and we also have animal-like protists. An example of which is the amoeba. Looking here now, we would call this organism an animal-like protist because it doesn't have chloroplast. Study the diagram and you see the main difference between this organism and the other ones you've seen there is the absence of chloroplast in this organism. Okay, cells can also exist as a multicellular organism, in which case it can exist as a colony. Example is the volvox. The volvox is an arrangement of cells. As you see in the diagram here, it's made up of many cells. They do not live independently of one another. They are always together as a colony. It is a multicellular organism, but here the cells exist as a colony. Next, we have cells existing as a filament, in which case we have the Spirogyra. Now, a filament here, as you see in this picture, is cells attached side by side as a filament. The Spirogyra is usually flat and one cell is attached to another cell side by side. It is also a multicellular organism. Okay? Now, cells can also exist as part of a living organism. Part of a living organism. In which case you have examples in higher organisms, all animals you can think of, all higher animals. Now here we have cells coming together to form the whole organism. Example, the blood cells, the nerve cells, all cells in your body. Cells come together to form tissues, and tissues come together to form organs, which form the system and then the whole organism. Okay, so here are questions for you. Number 1 is to identify 2 similarities between a unicellular plant-like and a unicellular animal-like protist. And number 2 is to state the cell organelle that differentiates between a plant-like and an animal-like protist. Okay, till next time, be safe.